students. Today I welcome you to DJL2105, the unit name Public Speaking. My name is Catherine Nyaga. I will be taking you through the art of public speaking and the skills that you need to acquire for you to become a better public speaker. So the purpose of this class will be to equip you as learners with the requisite skills and knowledge on the art of public speaking. So, but before we get now into the techniques and the skills, let us begin by looking at the importance of public speaking. Now, we can see that throughout the history of people, throughout the history of mankind, the art of public speaking has been very vital, especially in influencing the audiences and also making people adopt new ideas and also to influence the masses. So we have seen this especially with notable key speakers such as Martin Luther King and other various leaders of the world or other presidents of the world. So at this point, probably you may ask yourself, what do I need public speaking for? Yet I'm not a leader, yet I'm not a politician, but you will see that the need of public speaking will almost certainly touch you at some point in your life. So even as a student or maybe as a learner, you realize that in public speaking, acquiring public speaking skills will assist you to become a more professional person. You want to acquire skills that will enable you, when you speak, people want to listen to you. You want to speak with confidence, with poise. So also when you get, even into employment, you may find that when you're employed, you may need either to develop a presentation, either for adoption of new ideas within your organization, and for that presentation, for people to listen to you, you need to capture their attention. You need to capture their interest. How do you do this? It's acquiring the skills and the techniques of public speaking. So therefore, we can say that public speaking helps you acquire skills in critical thinking. It helps you acquire professionalism, know how to speak in front of an audience, and so forth. So let us now look at similarities between public speaking and everyday conversation. Now, we say that every other day conversation, you meet with someone maybe on along the way. It might be your friend you meet in class, or maybe it might be a colleague you're meeting up just to have a conversation one-on-one. So when we speak at times or when we talk, we realize that it's not so different from public speaking. And today we are going to be looking at the 4 similarities between public speaking and everyday conversation. The purpose of looking at these similarities is for us to understand that public speaking is not such an out of the world skill to acquire. So one of the similarity is that in everyday conversation, you often organize your thoughts systematically. When you're having a conversation with a friend, when you're meeting someone, or maybe you meet someone for the first time, if they ask you to give directions, there is a manner in which you will organize your thoughts. You first want to know where you are at the moment, where is that person going, so that you organize your thoughts into how you're going to give the direction to this individual. So you can imagine, for instance, if you're giving a direction of from one point to another, you don't want to confuse the person whom you're giving direction. So you will think about it first before giving the direction. So the same thing when it comes to public speaking. You often organize your thoughts before delivering a public speech. So the second similarity is that you tailor your message to your audience. A very important, a very important thing that we do every other day. You find that it comes out naturally when you're speaking to a younger person. Maybe, for instance, when you're speaking to a 5-year-old, will be very different from how you address an adult. So, for example, if you're trying to explain to a child how rainbows are formed, for example, you find that you will look for a more comprehensible, depending on the age of the child, and the way you explain the formation of rainbows to an adult in class, or maybe students in class, will be very different, because here these are adults who have acquired certain skills to be able to deduce the message that you are giving them, or decode the message that you are giving them. So the same thing, that when it comes to public speaking, you tailor your message to your audience, meaning that you want to first carry out an audience analysis, understand whom will you be addressing on the day that you'll be delivering your speech, so that when the day comes, you will be providing them with the information that they require, so that for your speech to be effectful. So the third similarity is that often in conversation, you never start with a punchline. This is, when you're having normal conversation, it's not a newspaper that you're going to give a headline. When it comes to everyday conversation, you want to give, you want to add color for emphasis purposes. You want to add either the, other wordings for, examples, so that the person whom you are addressing may understand what you are communicating. The same thing when it comes to public speaking, depending on the type of speech you're delivering. Remember that you have to capture your audience's interest and to make them attentive throughout your speech. So therefore, again, you shall use color, you shall look for all the language skills that you need to deliver your message effectively. The good thing that is, during this session, we are also going to look at that. So the third similarity is adapting to listeners' feedback, a very important thing that we all should adopt. You find that when you adapt to a listener's feedback, you'll be able to understand, is my message being passed along? You'll be able to tell as a speaker, even if it's an everyday conversation, even if you're having a conversation with a friend, you always look for their feedback. So you always want to know, are they listening to me, or maybe do they feel as if I'm wasting their time? Because at times you may find that when you're speaking to someone, if they are maybe doing something else, going through their phone, that is maybe a cue for you to know that maybe I should change the topic, this person does not have time for me. Those are the things that we always think about when you're having a conversation with someone who is not giving you the attention. So we read that nonverbal communication from the person whom is listening to us. The same thing in public speaking. It's very important to listen to your audience's feedback, and this may be through the nonverbal communication, physical reactions, maybe even facial expressions will notify you whether the person or the individuals are interested in what you are talking about. Now, despite public speaking being similar to everyday conversation, we can say that there are also distinct differences. One, because you find that everyday conversation, it's either between one or two people, or maybe one one-on-one, or one between two, or one between three. But now when it comes to public speaking, you're speaking to people in groups. You're speaking to people of 10s to 20s. You're speaking to people with different opinions on the subject matter that you are addressing at a particular time. So therefore, this brings about some of the distinct differences that may be expected from either an everyday conversation. So one of the differences is that public speaking is more or highly structured. In that we mean that the speaker has to watch his time or her time, and the audience cannot freely interrupt. Why is that? You find that when it comes to 20 people, then the speaker obviously has prepared a speech. They have to preempt what they are going to be speaking about. Therefore, they will be addressing the issue. So the question and answer may come towards the end, and like in an everyday conversation, a person may interject. But in a public speaking forum, you find that you find that now the lines or the differences between the speaker and the audience are clearly defined. The speaker is allocated a specific time to speak, and the audiences in turn are expected to speak or ask their questions after that. So the second difference is that public speaking requires more formal language. That means that you're dealing again with a public forum. 10 groups of people who at times may not necessarily know each other, who may have different backgrounds, people who may have different frames of reference, and therefore words that do not conform to the language that you're speaking should highly be avoided. Therefore means avoid slang, avoid jargon, because at times we may tend to think when we speak jargon, then we come out as better people, but that is not the case, because you will lose your audience if they do not understand some of the words that you're talking about. Bad grammar and bad, or what you can say, an overall bad language should never be used in public speaking. If you try to do this as a public speaker, you're losing your audience, and you're losing the confidence that they may have in you as a speaker. We say that a speech is special, and therefore the speaker's message should be carefully worded. So the last difference, we can say that public speaking requires a different method of delivery. You find that while it may be okay to have informal conversation that include things like, we are so used to using things like, I like, you like, such kind of distracting mannerisms should be avoided in public speaking at all costs. Because we find that as individuals, at times it comes very, when people are used to it, it may be used a lot, but it's a good habit to watch yourself when you're speaking, maybe even record yourself so that you can know some of the habits or the verbal habits that you have, and to avoid some of these mannerisms, especially in public speaking. So having looked at the similarities and the differences, so let us now go and understand how the communication process occurs in any public speaking process. So even for there to be a speech, there must be certain elements present. Otherwise, you cannot walk into a room and speak to an empty room. The same thing, you cannot walk to an audience when you don't have a prepared message for them. So these are the elements that must be present for any communication, for any public speaking process to be effective. And the first element we are going to look at is the speaker. The speaker is a very important element in any communication process in public speaking. The reason is the message the speaker delivers, the success of the message entirely depends on you as a speaker. And that is because you as a speaker, you are expected to prepare the message in prior to the audience, anticipating what probably what you'll be talking about, anticipate their attitudes, anticipate their motivations and their goals, or why they need to be, why they are present during that particular forum that you're delivering your speech. So very important, the success of any speech is dependent on how the speaker understands the topic that they are delivering. It depends on the preparation the speaker took to prepare for the particular speech. So the second is the message. So the second element is the message. Also, the message is very important. Why do we say it's important? That is because this is what the speaker intends to communicate. A speaker should always prepare for adequately. The speaker should always adequately prepare for the message and ensure that they anticipate what their audience want to say. So the message, we can say that achieving the message, the recipient, how the message is received by a particular audience will depend on the speaker's verbal and non-verbal communication. Why? Verbal, how the message is delivered to the audience, how they have prepared for the message, and how knowledgeable they are on the topic that they are delivering on. The second is, we are saying that the success also depends on the non-verbal message. Why? We say that the non-verbal cues how what is the posture the speaker is in, what is the confidence or when they are speaking, they exhibit when delivering the message. If the speaker seems like they're not confident in what they're delivering, then that is the same thing that is going to be caught by the audience, and therefore they will not have the confidence in the speaker. Also, enthusiasm for the message, how the speaker is delivering the message. If they are enthusiastic about the message, that means again the audience will become enthusiastic, they will be attentive, and definitely they will have an interest in the message that is being passed along. So that is where we are saying that a message is dependent on both verbal and non-verbal communication. So the next element you're going to look at is the channel, and we say that definitely channel is the means by which a message is communicated. In public speaking, we say it is important to consider the channel that you shall use when delivering your message to your public. If you're being recorded, for instance, ensure that the audio and the image is in good condition so that at the end of the day, when your audience is watching it, they will receive the message. If it's a face-to-face, if you have a big audience, how can you project your voice? Will you be audible in the entire room? If you're not going to be audible, prepare in advance, probably to have a PA system that will project your voice, that each and every member of the audience will be able to hear you. So it's very important to consider which are the acoustics of the room that you're going to be delivering your message. If you're delivering the message outdoors, what do you need to ensure that the physical distractions such as noise are going to be overshadowed by the delivery of your message? So it's very important to consider the channel before even going for the public speaking forum so that you are well prepared. So the next element we're going to look at is the listener. The listener is a very important person when it comes to definitely the public speaking process, or maybe the communication process in public speaking. The reason is you cannot have a speech in an empty room. This is the individual or the person who receives the communicated message. And we say that everything a speaker says is filtered through a listener's frame of reference. Remember, we began by saying that one of the differences in public speaking is that you are addressing a group of people that goes beyond 10 and above, and therefore it is difficult to have every individual within your audience to have the same attitude towards the topic that you are delivering. So therefore, the listeners that you will have will definitely have different frames of reference. And when we say frames of reference, we are talking about the total of his knowledge, experiences, goals, values, and attitudes. You find that every audience members, depending on their level of knowledge, depending on their attitude on the topic, their experiences on that, maybe the message that you're delivering, their goals will be dependent on how enthusiastic they are to listen to that particular topic. For instance, when you talk about being in a classroom, when you get to do a course, for instance, in journalism, you have a goal. You want to achieve the goal of attaining a certificate that will help you become a professional in the journalistic profession. So therefore, you enter into the classroom with the goal that I want to excel in my future profession, and therefore you will be attentive and do anything that pertains to achieving of your goal. The same thing applies to your attitude. So that is why we are saying that the listeners will have different frames of reference, and therefore a speaker, for them to be able to deliver a successful speech, they must be able to anticipate that the type of frames of references that make up their audiences by carrying out an audience analysis prior to the date of delivering the speech. That way, they will be able to anticipate the listeners' questions and be able to, to prepare for those particular questions and be able to tailor-make their messages based on the audience's frames of reference and be able to relate to the experience, interest, knowledge, and values. So another element very important in the speech communication process is feedback. Feedback is always very important. As we say, feedback is important even in an every other day conversation. Every other day conversation, we began by saying that you always look for how for the feedback within the person whom you're communicating with, either verbal or non-verbal. In that, you look at, they will interject, they will give you a response probably in an everyday conversation. Maybe they will give you facial expressions that maybe will give you an idea of what they feel about the message that you're delivering. Now, going back to public speaking, because now we are dealing with a large audience that are not free to interject, then you may find that you as the speaker, you are the person to become more attentive to their non-verbal communication cues so that you may be able to know, are they enjoying that particular topic that you're delivering? You'll be able to tell, are you using very sophisticated maybe concept that maybe you need to go down a bit, probably, and be able to adjust accordingly. So for instance, with the common non-verbal communication cues that maybe you may experience with in a public speaking scenario is maybe you may find people are always looking at the clock, like they can't wait for the topic to be over, they can't wait for the session to be over. Are they, applauding? Are they nodding in agreement? Are they, that kind of reaction may be able to tell you as the speaker, then there's something wrong that you're doing, or there's something right that you are doing. So the last element you're going to look at is interference, a very important element in the communication process, because you'll be able to anticipate the interference that may impede the success of your speech. Now, when you talk about interference, we say it is anything that impedes the communication of a message. Now, in public speaking, it can be both external or internal. Why external? External, it may be the physical noise. You are having your speech maybe along a busy road, and all you can hear is loud noises from the road. Then that can interfere with your audience's attention to the message that you are delivering. So in that instance, carrying out a prior situation analysis, you will be able to understand what are some of the things that you can do to reduce the external interference. Now, it can also be internal interference. This is hard for the public speaker maybe to interrupt, but it's good to understand what it means. Internal comes from within an audience. Human beings inherently have a short attention span, and you find that it can be those thoughts that they have within them that are distracting them from listening to the message that you are communicating. So you may find that, yes, you have a very attentive audience, but as time goes, you may find that some people may be carried away, and definitely then when these people get carried away, then it impedes with the success of their message. So as a speaker, it's important to come up with, for instance, techniques that will capture your audience's attention, such as use of visual aids, because if you use visual aids, it will be more interactive and to ensure that your audience is always attentive. So we've said that now also the interference, we also consider situation, and we can say that situation is the time and place in which speech communication occurs. It is the time and place in which communication, maybe which speech communication occurs, and public speakers must be alert to the situation. And being alert to the situation, we are saying that it can be, public speeches can be of different types. Speeches can be of different types. They may be ceremonial speeches, such as birthday celebrations. They may be graduation celebrations, or maybe you may find that it's inauguration speeches, or probably persuasive speeches. So it's important for a speaker to understand, if I will speak during this particular forum, which type of speech is it, so that I will be able to tailor the language of my speech depending to the occasion to which I will be making my speech. Also, when you talk about the situation, it also means the place that the speech shall be taking place. Again, the type of speech will determine the type of place that you're going to have your speech. So if it's a persuasive speech, if it's a political speech, for instance, and it's a big audience, maybe you cannot entirely accommodate everyone indoors. Maybe you want to have it outdoors. So those are the things you consider: the place, which is the size of your audience, which is the situation, which is the place that they are going to be comfortable in as you deliver your speech. So those are the elements involved in the communication process in public speaking. Let us now look at ethics in public speaking. Now, we say that ethics is a branch of philosophy that deals with issues of right and wrong in human affairs. So we say that questions of ethics arise whenever we ask if a course of action is moral or immoral, just or unjust, honest or dishonest. So we say that a speaker will have little impact, especially if they do not adhere to either what is morally considered right, what is considered just, or what is considered honest. If a speaker is being dishonest and the information that they are providing is false, then they will lose their credibility amongst their audiences. So in order as a speaker to enhance your credibility and for your audience to be attentive, then you need to adhere to the following ethics in public speaking. So the first ethical obligation will be act in ways that is consistent with the message of the presentation. So this can be as simple as showing concern for the type of message that you are delivering. You do not want to be delivering good news, or maybe in a happy forum, a special occasion, you're supposed to be delivering a speech and you are not happy. People will either be distracted and engage in other things unlike listening to your speech. So the second ethical obligation is ethical obligation we can say is good preparation. So good preparation is an ethical requirement. Why? Obviously, when a public speaking forum or a public speaking forum has been organized, then your audiences expect totality, understanding of the message that you shall be delivering on that particular day. If it's in a meeting and you have been tasked with preparing a presentation, definitely there is expectations of what the presentation is to give. Therefore, it's very important as a speaker. It's also ethical, and it's ethical to prepare. And always we say in public speaking, prepare. That is the only way you can also preempt the questions that your audiences want answered. So it's important to also prepare so that you provide the totality of the information that your audience expects from you, especially from the topic that you have prepared. So another ethical obligation is to show respect for your audience. Respect for your audience, very important. And that means in the manner in which you speak to them, in the manner in which you respect their time. So if a forum was to start at a particular time, ensure that you are there at a particular time, because you say that time is very expensive and cannot be changed. So it's important to respect the time for your audiences. Another important thing when it comes to showing respect for your audiences, avoid abusive language. Avoid abusive language that includes words that may be racial, words that are tribalic, and also disrespect for other people's gender, background, positions, or appearances or nationalities. Otherwise, you lose your credibility to that particular audience. So another important ethic is base your conclusions in your presentation on clear evidence. As we say that it is unethical to be dishonest, it's also very important to base, especially in persuasive speaking. In persuasive speaking, you may find that a presenter or maybe a public speaker may get carried away to give false information. That is quite unethical, because at the end of the day, your audiences will always know the truth always comes out, and they will lose confidence, especially with you as a public speaker. So always support your assertions with relevant facts, statistical information, and also testimony. Don't go picking testimonials or adopting testimonials as if they were your own. If you're not able to get the testimonial from the individual, it's important to credit that. If you have to use it, then credit it to the right individual. So another ethical obligation is to avoid name calling. So that is the use of language to either defame, to either demean or to degrade individuals or groups or other forms of abusive language. So it's very important that you avoid name calling, especially to your audiences. It doesn't matter what type of speech it is, but always ensure that you use you use the right language when speaking to your audience. So another important, very important ethical obligation is to avoid plagiarism. We say to plagiarize is to present another person's work as if it was your own. And at times you may find that this is triggered, especially if a person has been tasked with delivering a piece of work, especially assignments. You may find that when you're given an assignment, you have not begun it on time, and then you wait till the last minute when it is due. You may, that is where you find yourself in a rush and being tempted to plagiarize. So it's very important to be aware plagiarism can be, you should avoid plagiarism at all costs. And plagiarism can have hefty repercussions. Even in some situations, there are, there are penalties that can be imposed, especially if you are sued. So it's important to avoid plagiarism. Now, we said that there are different types of plagiarism, and the first one is global or wholesale plagiarism. Now, global or wholesale plagiarism, I'll give you an example. For instance, you find that a student did not have time to do their assignment. Maybe they were, they waited till the last minute. They go and photocopy someone else's work as if it were their own. So that is very wrong. So global wholesale, it's when you pick the entire person's work and present it as your own. The second type of plagiarism is patchwork. Patchwork means now when you borrow one thing from another web page. For instance, when you find that again you've been tasked with either coming up with a speech, but because you had no time to prepare it, you ensure that probably you go to different websites. You open different websites, take different resource materials, you look for those materials that they're flowing together, you piece them together, and then you present them as your own. Don't think because you've picked them from different areas that is not plagiarism. That still remains plagiarism because that is not your work. When you're doing your research, the purpose of your research is to be able to have a better understanding of the topic so that you may come up with your own message. And when instances where you have maybe to take some, you feel that you need to quote something exactly as it is for the message to be passed along, ensure that you give credit to the author of that particular message. Then we have incremental plagiarism. So incremental plagiarism may, incremental plagiarism means when you think that it's okay because it's just a phrase, it's just a quote. To quote, to quote a phrase or a quote without mentioning the person or the individual that prepared or made the quote. So it's important always to remember to avoid any type of plagiarism, to always give credit where it is, and always ensure that you begin your assignment of preparation for the speech or the message you're preparing in good time so that you have ample time to do your research and prepare your message adequately. Now, as much as we are saying that a public speaker has ethical obligations, we say that also a listener has their ethical obligations as well. And why do we say that? It's because listening is also a very important skill to acquire. So let us now look at the ethical obligations of the listener. So as a listener, if you find yourself also as a listener, it's important to listen courteously and attentively. The second one is to ensure, that you do not judge your speech you do not judge the speech that is being delivered by either the appearance or the name of the individual that is delivering that speech at that particular moment. The reason why we say this is because, one, you find that even as a public speaker, they have taken their time to prepare the topic. They have preempted the questions that you may have as a listener. So it's very important also to give them the respect that they deserve by ensuring that you also sit upright, maintain a good posture, and retain your attentiveness throughout the speech. Another important obligation for the listeners is to maintain a free and open expression of ideas. I'm sure at times we have been in situations where you feel that in a learning situations, especially learning situations, not everyone can learn in the same speed. People have different understanding rates, and at times it's important to ensure that you respect your other fellow audiences and listeners' points of view and their questions. Also, it means that you allow others also to express themselves in the manner that is right. So long as we say that, whatever is being expressed during that free flow of ideas is not defamatory to the speaker, is not defamatory to another student, or it is not a statement that can ruin the reputation of any other individual within the space or in that particular forum. So it's very important to maintain that free flow of expressions, because that is how you also get to learn how people view the world, and also to learn and also to to have a better understanding of the different people's frames of reference. Now, having looked at the ethical obligations, let us now look at listening skills. Listening skills. Now, we began by saying that listening is an important skill to acquire. Listening is an important skill to acquire. We often find that human beings, or most people, may be poor listeners. But at the same time, you're not saying that everyone is a poor listener. What you're saying that at times you may find people fake pay attention. What you're saying that fake paying attention is that at times people will nod, at times people will smile at the appropriate time, but if you ask them what the message is about or what the speaker said last, they will not be able to repeat it. So listening, we say that it is deeper than hearing. So every time someone is speaking, you may hear, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have listened. Now, we say that successful executive leaders and brilliant individuals, they are all excellent listeners. We say that nobody is born a good listener. It is an acquired skill. And we say that even these individuals who are successful leaders or maybe executives, it's because they have mastered the art of listening, and therefore when they listen, they absorb the information, the message accurately and quickly, and therefore that is how they are able to act on what their expectations. So one of the ways listening can serve you is by enhancing your skills as a critical thinker, because that is the most important type or kind of listening. So by saying that, we have different kinds of listening, or we have different types of listening. The first type of listening is called appreciative listening. Now, appreciative listening is where one listens for enjoyment or to be entertained. Maybe you have attended a comedy show and you're just there to enjoy yourself. You're watching your favorite TV show or maybe a film to appreciate, or maybe for enjoyment purposes. So then the next type of listening is empathetic listening. So this is the type of listening that you listen either to a friend, to a person in need, to offer them emotional support, either to console them or probably to help them through an emotional distress that they may be facing. So the third type of listening is comprehensive listening, and we say this is the type of listening to understand the message. This is what we do mostly in class. When your lecture comes in, you're there with your notepads, you're there with your books, and you want to understand the concepts that have been prepared for you as part of the message. Then the last type of listening is critical listening. Now, this is a very important. Comprehensive listening and critical listening are the most important, or maybe the biggest listening skills that you can acquire to become a good public speaker. So we say that critical listening is listening to evaluate a message for the purpose of accepting or rejecting the message. If, for instance, if it's a political campaign, you listen to evaluate whether you'll adopt the messages that are being sold to you, messages that are being passed to you, based on analyzing them and drawing the evidence and then making your own judgment based from facts. Critical listening is also when you listen to a business pitch, for instance. Someone is pitching you a business idea. So you critically listen for the purpose of analyzing the facts, analyzing, analyzing the situation and making judgments based whether it is good for you or not good for you to adopt that particular business based on factual information. So comprehensive listening and critical listening are very vital into improving the individuals you will become as public speakers. So as I said before, it's a public speaker is not born a public speaker. You become a good public speaker by acquiring the skills and the techniques. And you start doing this by ensuring that you are a good critical listener and also a comprehensive listener. Comprehensive so that you learn. You learn, and you say that when it comes to comprehensive listening, not just in class, but gathering information around you. So these can be through various avenues, various books, not necessarily for the topic or the subject matter that you are being taught. So read wide to also acquire comprehensive, to acquire more information. So let us now look at, we started by saying that we have, people can be poor listeners. And we say that most of the times this is the situation. If you ask someone after a particular message has been delivered, if you ask them which were the main points delivered during this particular point, they may probably not even remember the purpose of the message. So let us look at what causes poor listening so that we can train ourselves to become good listeners. The first one is not concentrating. Not concentrating. This happens especially when you let your thoughts wander, for instance. We say that when it comes to, one of the things with humans, we at times have a way of, having our thoughts wander, especially people when they're speaking for a lengthy period of time. So we say listening at times can be work, and it requires to be worked on actively and not passive activity. So you need to become a good listener, you need to work at it. So the second cause of poor listening is listening too hard. I know this point might be very strange, because you may say that then why is listening too hard a bad thing, yet you want to absorb everything. Humans are not sponges. You cannot soak up every detail of the message that is being communicated to you. You may find that a message that is being delivered on a particular day, it may be loaded with a lot of dates, activities, places, and and every other detail. The purpose is not for you to soak up everything. As a human being, you are not a sponge, and therefore not everything that you hear you will remember. The purpose of the message is to gain the main points and to understand the purpose of the message. Even when you're in a class situation, you may not write everything, or everything that is being said from the beginning of the lesson to the end. So acquiring note-taking skills may help you to understand the topic that is being delivered. So it's important not to listen too hard. Listening too hard involves soaking everything. You can never remember everything. So it's important to listen to the speaker's main point, understand the purpose of the message, so that you know what to take and what to retain and what not to retain. So another cause of poor listening is jumping to conclusions. Yes, we are, it's natural at times to jump into conclusions. Why? You find that people often have various frames of reference. You may have a particular topic. You may have had a particular experience within that topic, and therefore you go with a prejudgment, and therefore that may affect your the listening, and which you may impede your the fact that you can also learn. So another cause of poor listening is focusing on delivery and personal appearance. So at times we say that, especially when it comes to speaking, not every speaker will speak the same. Not every speaker will deliver the message the same. You find that people come with the different voice intonations, will have different accents. So if you concentrate, for instance, on a speaker's accent, you've already told your mind that I cannot understand that message already. So it's important to have an open mind, so that you concentrate on the major message that is being delivered to you. So let us look at how do you become a good listener. So when it comes to listening, as we say that listening requires work. So we can say that we should all aspire to become good listeners, because when we become good listeners, that is how we also improve our area of knowledge within the topics that we may be expected to deliver. That is how we gain more information of the world and so forth. So we can say that the first point into becoming a good listener is to be an active listener. Being an active listener means that you try as much as possible to avoid distractions. Being an active listener, avoid many distractions, especially in today's world. We are living in a world where you find most people will have either their headphones, their earphones, and do multitasking, or maybe when they are reading a book and at the same time they are listening to music within their earphones, or maybe they are listening to an iPod at the same time doing something else. So as much as you have that habit of either doing two things when you're listening, it's important to avoid that passive listening, and it's important to adopt a habit of active listening. When you decide you're going to listen to a podcast, it is the podcast that you're going to be listening to and not doing something else. Because if you do something else when you're still listening to maybe a podcast, it will distract you from the message, and you will have a compromise on one of the things that you are doing. So the next point into becoming a good listener is to resist distractions. Always resist distractions. We say that definitely in an ideal world, we would eliminate all physical and mental distractions, such that, if there was noise, you would not easily be distracted in it. We would avoid all mental distractions, but this cannot happen. So in order to be good listeners, however, when we find that there is noise that is outside, or maybe there is a commotion, or maybe whenever you find yourself, your mind wandering away into other things, bring yourself back to the speech. Prompt yourself to pull your mind back to what the speaker is talking about. So with that, we've come to the end of the lesson. I want to thank you for having been with me during this session. Thank you and goodbye.